going to make white. Whatever is white, I'm going to make black. Pop. There we go. Nice and easy. Pretty simple. So now that that's done, all we're going to do now is we're just going to take a big brush, Photoshop brush, you know, that guy right there, B for brush. Now I'm going to go in here, this is my brush palette across here. I'm going to click on that guy, and I'm going to start with a 300 size brush. 300, depending on the resolution, I'm making this at 300 pixels per inch. So the higher the resolution, the smaller the brushes look. I'll put it that way. So a 300 pixel size brush looks smaller at 300 ppi than a 300 pixel brush at 100 ppi, and we'll cover that later. It's just try it and you'll see. Anyway, so we got this brush selected, so we're gonna go in. I'm gonna make this a big brush. When you're doing shading and gradients, you want a huge brush because you don't want to do it all like jaggedy and stuff. For example, if I have to make a small brush and I came in and I'm like starting erasing, you know, number one, my coverage sucks, so I have to do more work. Number two, it doesn't have a smooth transition. It looks pretty rough, unless that was the intended appearance. You don't want that. So we're going to get rid of that. I'm going to go in and I'm going to get a brush. I'm going to get this. I'm going to make this really big, 600 points. What I do is, like, I could go in here and blast the crap out of it right away, and you'll see my intended approach, my intention. I want to blend this down and give a nice highlight pop to it. But I think that's still too sharp. There's too much of an edge here. I want to have it nice and smooth. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to bring, you can either change the opacity or the flow. It's up to you. I'm going to change the opacity on this one. I'm going to bring it down to like 20%, maybe 30. And usually what I do is I just start working in it slowly, nice and slow. And I kind of work all the way down like so, just like that. And then I go in and I come in again, you know, and just kind of come in again and just erase it out, nice and slow. And maybe I want a bigger brush size. You can make this thing huge. Oh, and by the way, to make brushes bigger and smaller, notice right up here, right bracket makes it bigger, left bracket makes the brush smaller. So you can adjust stuff on the fly. That's really nice. So I'm going to go in and just make this huge brush, massive brush. Just blend it out nice. And there we go. After that's done, and a lot of this stuff, the blending, the lighting, all these shading, it's personal preference. There's no right or wrong way to do it, as long as you follow some rules about lighting and shading and that kind of stuff. Oh, I almost forgot. Drop shadow. Well, we can apply a drop shadow just using the effects right through here. We'll apply to the master layer. I'm going to go in here, and there's a couple different ways to do it. I can use the drop shadow itself. I can do that, and it gives me this nice option, and you'll see that there's a little bit of a highlight on here. Again, the drop shadow is also resolution dependent. The higher the resolution, the smaller impact the drop shadow is, the more you have to increase these slider bars to give the same effect. And I can actually click on here and drag this all the way around. I can make it look like it's floating, blah blah blah. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in and I'm just going to nudge this a little bit. I'm going to zoom in a bit. And I found Photoshop gives often the drop shadows are too harsh right off the bat. So, and you can also modify the distance here. Distance is how far away the image is. So I'm actually going to increase the size. The size is like the spread of the actual drop shadow. So I like to soften it. And I'm going to bring the distance down in just a little bit. So it's just a nice, maybe we'll offset it just a bit. So you see where we're going. It's just a nice smooth shadow. And of course it all depends on lighting. So it looks like this lighting is coming from, you know, maybe I want to put it from like right there, just for say. So then we got a drop shadow there. Boom, done. So now we got this drop shadow. So we're almost there. Well, sometimes there's like some super hot highlight spots around. Well, that's easy. We could go in, we're going to make a new layer, and I'm going to go in here and just get my Photoshop brush, and I'm just going to go down here, make it really small. And actually, or you can make it big. Make it really small, make sure white is selected. I want 100% white on this one. And I'm going to go in and, for example, another one point, I want to make sure this little guy is selected airbrush. The airbrush tool kind of acts like your spray paint. So the more you hold it down, the bigger the intense this thing gets. So I'm going to go in here and just go whoosh, just pop like so. And you see it takes a little bit of control. Sometimes you want to bring this down. I'm going to zoom in quite a bit and go just slowly hold it down. You see, slowly kind of keep on popping. There we go. So it's a nice little effect. Now here's the cool thing about adding highlights on a new layer. I can go to my move tool and I can move them around. So if I want to highlight right there, I can move it. I can duplicate it. I can move that one around. I can put it over there if I want. I can scale it down, and I can scale it up to some extent too, depending on how blurry I want this thing. I could throw it up there. It really depends what you want to do. So there's all different kinds of effects and stuff you can throw in. And I mean, this is the beginning. For example, I could now take, well, this guy here. I could make it semi-transparent because, say for example, there are layers. I can say, well, let's put in a background here. Let's see. Let's open a file. Well, for example, the pen tool trace image. Let's open this up. This is the exercise we used before. We're going to open it up, and we're going to go, yeah, okay, whatever. And I'm going to drag this right into here. So say we wanted to have, you know, this button be transparent. I want to be able to see this stuff in behind. That's okay. We can go in here, and I can actually go in here, and there's two things I can do. One thing, notice how we got all these layers organized. They're all over the place. So it's like it's starting to get lots of layers in here. If I go in here and click once, and then go hold my shift key down and click all the way down here, I'm selecting all of them. And then if I go Command G, that basically groups everything, throws everything into a nice folder. I can then, if I want, because this is a layer, and I can do this individually also, but I'll show you both ways. I can select this, and I can go in and I can go multiply it. So now it becomes transparent. It's a nice shiny glass button. Ah, it's beautiful. I can do a linear burn, which boosts some of the contrast values. I can color dodge, which has other options. I can do a soft light. I can do a hard light. You see kind of how everything takes on different values. I can do a pin light. Saturation, which is, you know, depending on what you have, luminosity, color. I can go back up. I'm just going to go back to multiply, for example. So that's set to multiply. Now I can go back in here. I can add a layer mask to, for example, to this guy right off the bat. Or actually, I can go in here. I can add a layer mask to the group itself. I can go down here, pow, add a layer mask. Get my brush going, get a massive brush. Say I want to have some transparency in here. I'm going to set my brush to, like, geez, I don't know, maybe 16. Go in here, blur it out a bit, and now you're modifying your original button, but you're not really wrecking anything. And you see how you can modify one button and make it do the job of many. So now I've kind of have this nice, and I can go back in here, and I can just whoosh, brush through, and what I'm doing is I'm actually physically masking off I'm hiding the bits and pieces. So I'm not wrecking anything, I'm not erasing anything, everything is still there. There you go, there's your shiny button. Oh, another thing, say for example the client that you're working for doesn't like red. Well, that's okay. We can go in, double click on it, let's change it to blue. Double click, roll, go to blue, done. There you go. In the old days, that would have taken a lot longer. So now we have a nice shiny button. And now this is an example of how to make reflections and everything. Navigation buttons for websites come in all shapes and sizes. You know, it depends. You know, if you want to make them super shiny, that's your choice. This is just an example. Good button making. Anyway, catch you later, and I hope you enjoyed it.